Buyer demand is finally simmering down a little bit. Sellers and more sellers are listing homes. Things are getting a little bit easier to be a buyer in South Florida. Anthony Lamacchia here, broker owner of Lamacchia Realty, and I'm here to talk to you about what's going on in the South Florida housing market. Last time I did one of these updates was end of April, and a lot has transpired since then, and I am here to talk to you about what's going on in the market. We just completed our April Florida housing report earlier this week, and remember, you might say, well, that's old news, it's May. Understandable, but it takes a month for the data to come out. So I want to show you that. I want to talk to you about what we're seeing in the last few weeks and what I expect in the months and weeks to come. Please keep in mind, this is the first time that we are talking about a full month of housing data, being April, that was after the pandemic started. Think about that. Pandemic started February, March, January, but it didn't really put us into being shut down until March 2020, middle of the month. And that's when things began to get ugly in South Florida and things were in shutdown mode. Traveling came to a screeching halt. Out of state, out of town buyers completely stopped at first. And that's why sales were down so incredibly much in April of 2020. And here we are in April of 2021, and they are up dramatically. So allow me to spend a little bit of time going over this with you, and then I'll talk more about what I expect in the months to come. This is our South Florida housing market report. A lot of text, but it pretty much explains everything. Here is somewhat of a summary of what is going on in Broward County right here. Single family homes in the month of April, closed sales up 81%. I'm trying to make it full screen. Hang on. There we go. 81%. That is significant. Now, how much of that can be contributed to the fact that COVID was, had a severe impact on April of 20? Probably half of that. I would say that under normal circumstances, sales would have been up 30 or 40%. Instead, they're up 80. Average price is up 45%. That is significant. This is Broward County specifically. New listings up 51%, pending sales up 125%. Think about that from an inventory perspective. Think about that. New listings up 51%, pending sales up 125%. What does that mean happened to inventory in the month of April in South Florida? Went down, okay? Went down. Now, why is it a little better? The last few weeks we noticed it's a little better, a few less buyers at open houses. Well, that's because each and every week buyers are finding properties, so that's helping. Now look at condos and townhomes. Closed sales up 127%, average price up 22%, new listed properties up 88%. Now notice that new listed properties in shared living spaces, condos, townhouses, up 88, single families up 51. That is interesting. That is because people that were living in shared living type spaces were much more restrictive about listing a year ago. That's since burned off now that things are better. Pending sales are up 277%. So condominiums are roaring in Broward County. Now I want to look at something else. See if I can find the one other thing I want to talk to you all about. Not finding it, so I will go back. I'll hopefully find it by the end. Miami-Dade County, talk about crazy numbers. Similar. Closed sales up 83% for singles. Average price is up 89%. I want to say the same thing I've said about Miami the last couple of months. That number is somewhat inflated because of all of the luxury sales. Now that people can work remotely, executives and such, we are seeing that more people are buying. There's basically been a run on luxury sales in South Florida. So that's why that's up so much. That doesn't mean that the everyday home is up 89%, but the everyday home is probably up 40% in the last year. And that's very interesting. We're showing you the average. New listed properties up 61, pending sales up 103. Now keep in mind, these are single families. Now we jump to condos, closed sales up 234%. Foreign influence is having some impact on that. I want to point that out. We're starting to see some of that come back in the last few months. It's coming back. It's getting stronger. And we expect it to only get stronger as they open up the borders more, which may be a few months away. Average price is up 67. New listed properties up 103. Pending sales up 428%. That is fascinating. And that shows how much they slowed down last April. Now we go to Palm Beach County. Similar astounding numbers, less triple digits. But closed sales up 67%. Average prices up 78%. New listings up 78%, pending sales 71%. Closed sales for condos up 134%. I thought this was interesting. 23% under normal circumstances would be awesome news, but this made me pause for a second. Condos in Palm Beach County are only up 23%. That sounds ridiculous. There clearly is more of a run on single families. Palm Beach County tends to have a wealthier buyer, and people are running more towards singles. There's clearly more demand on those. But look at pending sales up 215%. Those are significant numbers. So when I look at what's happening in South Florida, it's pretty clear that the demand remains extremely, extremely strong. And I think that I don't see a possibility of it backing off or slowing down other than in a normal seasonal aspect. So when I talk about how it's a little better in the last few weeks, don't be confused by that. When I say a little better, I mean not 75 people at an open house, cars lined up down the street. I mean 30. Instead of 30 offers, maybe there's 15. So it's a little better. The winter was just crazy with low inventory, both in the Northeast and down here in South Florida. Now it's getting a little better, but the demand remains significant. If you are a buyer, you have to accept the fact that this is a seller's market. When I say it's better, it's a little better. You're going to need to have some patience. You're not going to be able to land every property. You likely won't be able to land every property you want. You will have to exercise some patience in finding the home that you want and in understanding that you may lose out on some homes. But there's no doubt, and those statistics prove it, that Miami, Broward, and further up the coast in Palm Beach, was there 2 weeks ago, Palm Beach County, West Palm, the demand is significant. There was even an article in the Sun Centennial last week talking about how there are even sellers who are cashing in on properties in South Florida, selling and going further up north, going to Orlando, going to Ocala, places like that. Some were even saying they're going in the outskirts of West Palm Beach, kind of Palm Beach County in the outskirts, more westerly. I found that interesting. There's no denying that we are in a very strong seller's market. So if you're someone who is thinking of potentially cashing in and selling at the top, I can't tell you that I think we're at the top. I don't really think that. But if you want to cash in at a time that things are very good, this is obviously a time that you could do that. We're also seeing slightly less cash buyers in the market, slightly less. So things seem to be a little bit easier for buyers. Home buyers, condo buyers, you're going to have some patience, but you also have to be prepared to compete. And you cannot quiver and make problems out of little things like in home inspections. Talked to some of our realtors down there, both in our company and companies outside. And it seems that the South Florida buyers are not as accustomed to seeing such demand on properties. This really only got extremely strong in the last year since COVID. It was strong before that, but it wasn't like now. And some buyers still seem to think that if they inspect a property that has 15 offers and they find something wrong that maybe needs $10,000 to fix, Some buyers seem to think that sellers are just gonna, oh sure, I'll do it, no problem. They get surprised when a seller says, I'm not fixing anything. Don't be surprised. Don't be personally offended. It's okay. It's all about supply and demand. And you have to understand, as the home buyer, you are you are definitely not the only person interested in a property. Unless this property is falling down, dilapidated, and unfinanceable, you have no chance of being the only buyer interested. And if you were in the seller's shoes, you wouldn't go spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 if you had 5 other buyers lined up to buy your home. You just wouldn't do it. So you have to understand that, and you have to accept that, and not be too competitive into thinking, why should I have to do that? Why should I have to fix something? If you want to buy a property in this market, you have to accept that you're going to have to do more work. You're going to have to put up with things that come up on home inspection. Now, sellers, don't hear that and overplay your hand. If something comes up that is significant and you would need to disclose it when you relist the property, if the buyer was to fall through, you should think about potentially meeting the buyer halfway, or maybe meeting the buyer a quarter of the way there to make the buyer feel better. Don't overplay your hand. Also, don't, and I mentioned this a short while ago in my Massachusetts and New Hampshire update, also do not overplay as far as pricing. We are seeing some sellers have properties listed for $400,000 in their neighborhood, and they want to sell for $600,000. We're seeing sellers who hear of their neighbor selling for $700,000 or $800,000. They say, well, that's wonderful. I want $1 million. Folks, this isn't pick your price. It doesn't work that way. The property has to appraise. The buyer also has lots of access to what properties are selling for. You can't just pick your price. It's not that simple. So please do bear that in mind, because if you overdo it, you will only end up costing one person money, yourself. So to conclude, the South Florida market remains strong. Things are going well. No one should be concerned about a housing market crash. It is impossible for that to happen with inventory this low, and the demand is still strong. But if you're a buyer, you should be happy that things are a little bit better. It is undoubtedly like a smidge better in the last few weeks. And when I see you again in a month for an update, or maybe when I'm down there in a couple of weeks, I bet I'll be telling you that it's even a little bit better. Hope that helps, my friends. Please post your questions. Please read our detailed reports. Next month, I promise you, we're going to show you an inventory graph of what's going on with inventory. I'll be back to you with that. And that's all, my friends. That concludes my South Florida real estate market update. Thank you.